Hi, welcome back everyone. How are you doing this day? The day has been quite okay for me, and I hope it has been, okay for you as well. So, in some of our classes lately, we've been looking at the issue of tax incidence. So, I think we started from the elasticity of demand, then we moved into tax incidence, then we moved into a case with subsidy. Like, what if it was not tax that was imposed? What if it was a subsidy? So, we did a class on that, a class or two, or something like I don't even really remember right now. So, today I want to talk about another part of tax incidence, which is talking about tax yield. Like basically, tax yield is about tax revenue. So we are trying to look at a unit tax. Let's say the government is trying to maximize tax revenue, okay, from a particular product. So tax, what unit tax should the government impose on the commodity in order to be able to like generate the maximum revenue possible? So like should the government just impose a random per unit tax, right? Or the government should impose a particular per unit tax for it to like generate maximum tax yield or maximum tax revenue. All right, so normally the way we used to work it out, we have the inverse. We have like you have a demand function and a supply function, right? So then we change the demand functions into inverse demand functions, and then the supply function to into inverse supply function. So like I don't want us to cram this thing. I really want us to understand it. So let's say this is the solution, right? So if you recall, this is like the normal this is like the graph. We have P here, zero, then we have quantity on this axis. Right. So we have the supply curve, then we have the demand curve, right? And then because when we are looking at tax incidence, we are looking at indirect taxes, right? Because if a direct tax is imposed on you, it's not like you can shift the burden in any way. So the kind of taxes where we talk about tax incidence is indirect tax, right? So the supplier then begins to look at it. The formal incidence, that is the original person meant to bear the burden of the tax, is the supplier, right? But then the supplier now sits back and then looks at it, can I shift some of this burden to the consumer? So now looking at effective incidence now. So it is effective incidence that is looking at where the burden of taxation eventually lies, right? So for indirect taxes, like which we talk about under tax incidence normally, the formal incidence is on the supplier, right? And then the what do you call it now? The effective incidence now is now what we are trying to like determine who is bearing more of the tax burden and all of that. But then that's not really what we want to go and do today. So if you remember your normal graph, so this is y, and then this is like x, and normal mathematical function. It used to be y being a function of x, right? So that is y is a dependent variable, x is the independent variable. So the dependent variable is a function of the independent variable. So that is why for the graphs that we have here, this is the demand graph, and then this is the national supply graph. So it is important that we, have their inverse demand function. So their inverse functions. So the PD is not going to be a function of QD, right? Just as the graph has it. And then PS as well is going to be a function of QS. So that is why it is important that we convert our normal demand functions into their inverse form. Normally it's meant to be QD is a function of PD, right? Where Q might be 40 minus 2P, for example. But here, what we are doing is that we are making P the subject. And so I explained that in the first class. So I'm just trying to like go over it in case you missed it. So, and then normally, if a tax is imposed, like we said, normally the tax is meant to be on the supplier, right? If a tax is imposed, there's going to be an inward shift of the supply curve. So, okay, let me just have the old equilibrium. So looking at this graph, this is the old equilibrium quantity, Q star, and then this happens to be the old equilibrium price, P star. So the tax is imposed on this commodity. We don't know the amount, right? And then this guy will shift. So black hole will shift in a parallel manner. So we have ST. This is shifting by the amount of the tax. So as a result of this, now consumers have to pay more. Okay, consumers are paying more. So PC. So this is the new equilibrium. Q T star, like quantity as a result of tax. And then if you look at this place, this is what producers are receiving. So normally this is looking like an elastic graph, because if we look at the distance here, that's part of the entire rectangle. and then the distance here, the one for the supply is more. Okay, the one for the supply is bigger. Okay, but we've explained this in previous lessons, so that's not a big deal. So what we're just trying to say now is that this is the tax yield. This entire box represent the tax yield. Okay, that's like the tax revenue, and this entire box represent tax revenue. I don't know why this thing decided not to shade the whole part out for me over there. Okay, let me just do it properly. Um, so the box represents the tax revenue, and so how do we get that? How do we get that tax revenue out? So all we just have to do is we find the area of the rectangle, right? So if you're trying to find the area of the rectangle, it's going to be you have the box is like this. So here we have PC, here we have PP. This is price that consumers are paying after tax, price that producers are receiving after tax. Yeah, and then from here to here, like if you come and check here to here, this is zero, and this is QT star equilibrium quantity. So the length of this, right? The length of this is a rectangle. The length is just QT minus zero, which is QT star, and then the breadth is PC minus PP. So majorly the when you subtract the price that consumers are paying from the tax that producers are receiving, what we actually get is the tax that was imposed, right? So this is going to be equal to the unit tax. Okay, unit tax is going to be equal to the tax that was imposed. Okay, for example, if here had been, let's say initially at the equilibrium here, let's say it had been, this is looking clumsy already, and not to be clumsy. So let's say before the equilibrium was 5, right? And then price that consumers are now paying after tax is 7, price that producers are receiving is 3. So what we just have to do is this 7 minus 3 equals 4. So that means per unit tax is 4. That is 4 naira is imposed on 4 naira tax is imposed on every unit of this commodity that is sold to the market. So like 4 naira on it. So that's just what we are doing. When we say PC minus PP, it will eventually give us the amount of the unit tax that was imposed. All right. So applying all of this understanding, so let's just go into what we are supposed to do today. So look at it. PD is 180 180 minus 8Q. So this is if you want to get the equilibrium point initially equals to PS. What am I even doing? So this is no, we don't need what I want to do right now. So but then at equilibrium, before tax, so we can just say PD equals PS, because normally um PD is going to be equal to PS before tax. So you have 180 minus 8Q equals 25 plus 2Q. Okay, so from here we have 180 minus 25 equals 2Q plus 8Q. So this is 155 equals 10Q, and then Q equals 15.5. So before, like, so that means here what we had was 15.5. Then all right. Then to get the price, we can just use any of the any of the price functions. So you can say PD. So use PD. Whatever you get is going to be same as PS. So since PD is 180 minus 8Q, so 180 minus 8 into bracket 15.5. So PD equals I think 180 15 times 8 should be 120 124. This is 124, and then PD equals PS equals P star is 124. No, this is 124. 124 is 56 rather. So this is going to be 56. 56. Okay, the question did not give us the unit of measurement or whatever. So this was what we had before. So what we are going to do now is we are trying to look for the tax yield. That is, we are trying to look for the entire area. So what we just do is when the tax was imposed, it was imposed on the supplier originally, And then we've already understood that the price that the seller is receiving now is going to be lower than what he or she used to collect before. So how does the tax affect the seller? So this supply function is now going to become PS minus tax, because the seller has to like bear a part of the tax in form of lower prices for the commodities now. Lower prices for the commodities. So for every unit that is being sold, like the seller has to remove tax and then pay to the government as well. So the price that the seller will be receiving now after tax will be lower compared to the price before tax. All right, so this is going to be the new inverse supply function. PS minus T equals 25 plus 2Q plus 2Q. So PS is equal to 25 plus 2Q plus T. Okay, so um, this is PS. So from here, how do we get the price that consumers are paying? So because we need to get this PC, we need to get this PP. PC minus PP give us the tax, the per unit tax. There's something I want to really drive at. So for us to get the PC, what we used to do normally is that, okay, look at the new supply function. The new supply function is intersecting the old demand curve, and it was from that point that you got the PC out. Like from here that we got the PC out. So what we just have to do is that, okay, this is the new inverse supply function. Then it has to like equal the demand function. So to get price consumers are paying after tax, to get price um, consumers pay after tax. So what do? We just equate PS. So we having PS. I've called this on PS before. So let me just call this PST. So PST, okay, equals and that's um supply the price after tax. PST equals PD. So PST is equal to 25 plus 2Q plus T equals, then PD was 180 minus 8P or something. 180 minus 8Q. So from here we just get we can get the Q out. So okay. So 25 25 minus, I'm trying to get the Q. Okay. So we have 2Q plus 8Q equals 180 minus 25. 180 minus 25 then minus T. So 10Q equals 180 minus 25, that's 155 minus T. So Q equals 15.5 minus 0.1 T. So this is the quantity, the equilibrium quantity as a result of tax. Okay, as a result of tax. So what we then do is that we substitute the value of this Q, into the old demand curve to now get the price that consumers are paying. So substitute, like it's not difficult. You already got this equilibrium Q here. Okay, and then we realize that it was when the new supply curve intersected the old demand curve. All right, so how do we now get this price? We have to like put this quantity back into like the old demand function to get the price out. All right, so the price there is going to be, I think, like where is it? So we go back to PD. So PD, because that was the old demand function, equals 180 minus 8 into brackets 15.5 minus 0.1 T. Okay, so when we proceed, we don't need all of these calculations, but I just want to like show you something. 180 minus 8 times 15.5, you've done that guy before. So you have 124, then minus times minus is plus 0.8 T. So looking at this alone, you realize that the price that consumers are paying now will be more than before, and because you have a plus here, plus 0.8 T. So PD equals 56 plus 0.8 T. So that's the price that consumers are paying now after tax. Right? So like we have to like get the price that sellers are receiving after tax. So we can just do that one here. Price sellers receive after tax. Now if you look at it, for us to get that, we got the price that consumers are paying here. by equating the new supply curve to the old demand curve. But the price that sellers are receiving is here, like from our previous lessons. So how do we get that? We get that by tracing this equilibrium to the old supply curve. So that means our Q is going to put is we are going to put the quantity in the old supply function, like the one before the tax. So which is this. So I put it there, we will get the price that sellers are now receiving. Okay, so P, let me call that. So this is PDT after tax. Let me call this PST after tax. I hope I don't have PST before. Okay, yeah, it should still be the same thing. PST equals what is it? 25 plus 2 into brackets. It is 2Q, right? 25 plus 2. So we put this Q back. 15.5 minus 0.1 T. So this is equal to 25 plus, this is looking like, is this 30, 31? Yeah, 31. Then plus times minus 0.2 T. So moving away from there, we'll be having PST equals 56 minus 0.2 T. So this is the price that sellers are receiving after tax. So remember that I said price consumers are receiving minus price consumers are paying minus price that producers are receiving will give us the tax rate that was imposed, right? And we don't know that yet. So what we just do is PDT minus PST. You see, the answer is a very funny answer. I was saying that the answer is a very funny answer. So we just have to do PC minus. So we have P what is it? PDT minus PST equals to the tax, the per unit tax that was imposed. So PDT is 56. So you have 56 plus 0.8 T minus open bracket 56, 56 minus 0.2 T. So this is equal to the per unit tax that was imposed. So 56 plus 0.8 T minus 56 then plus 0.2 T is equal to the per unit tax. Um, okay, so we have 56 cancels 56, 0.8. So this is the answer here is T. Let me just call this the per yeah, that's what it's meant to be, per unit tax. Okay, per unit. Let me just leave it in words. Per unit tax and per unit tax. So per unit tax equals T from our calculation. And normally that was it. Per unit tax, that was it. So if you do this minus this, you should get the value of your per unit tax, which should be a number. But like because here we don't know it, so that's why it is still T. So in case you have a question like this, because you're going to be having an assignment, like you don't need to like do everything I've done. So just know that okay, your per unit tax is T. That is the breadth of the rectangle here is T. Right. So how do we get our tax yield? So tax yield, which I'm going to call Ty, is going to be equal to what's the area of a rectangle? Length times breadth, right? Equals to length times breadth. So Ty equals to our breadth is T. Our breadth is T. And what is the length? The length is the distance between here and here. So which is between 0 and our QT. We got our QT as this. So we'll be having open brackets QT, this is it, 15.5. 15.5 minus 0.1 T multiplied by T. Like we just basically did this length multiplied by this breadth, and that's all. So Ty equals 15.5 T minus 0.1 T squared. So this is like the tax yields equation. So what we had to do, like what the question was just asking us to do was, okay, what is the amount of tax that will maximize this function? And of course, you are probably used to total revenue, marginal revenue, profit. So how do you maximize those things? So you just like find the first derivative. Just find the first derivative. right? So we are going to do the ty dt, and then we equate it to zero, equate it to zero. So that's going to give us when you do the ty dt, that's going to be 15.5, 15.5 minus 0 2 will come here, so 0.2t equals 0. So 15.5 equals 0.2t, and by the time you do your division, so t equals 77.5. So like this is the answer. T is equal to 77.5. So like the amount of tax that will maximize the tax yield here is the amount of per unit tax that will maximize the tax yield is 77.5. So you could have just done, like what you could have just done is find your equilibrium T after tax, right? Then you don't need to do this subtraction as I did here. Just this, whatever you get for your quantity after tax now, multiply by the tax, the per unit tax itself. That'll give you the tax yield. Like you don't need to do PDT minus PST, but like I just wanted us to see it, like how it works. So T multiply by, go on and find this guy, right? In fact, you don't even need to find the equilibrium before, like you don't need to find this first one that we got 15.5 and then get the price. No, you don't really have to do that. Just add tax to, like, I think your solution is going to start from here. You should start from here, normally just here, right? So where you like take tax away from the price that the sellers are receiving, then you continue solving, right? Till you get that equilibrium quantity that is as a result of the tax. Then you multiply that by the tax that you are not giving, the tax rate, the per unit tax. So you just arrive at this guy straight. So after that, differentiates this function with respect to the tax rate, and then you have 77.5. Like whatever answer you're going to get, so that's going to be the tax, per unit tax that maximizes the tax yield per unit tax. That is tax on every of the units sold. So, like if it was a phone, for example, on one phone, the tax will be 77.5. On two phones, that will be 77.5 multiplied by 2, should be 145, right? So, like tax per unit, tax on each of them. So, for you to get the entire tax yield, tax per unit multiplied by all the output, that were sold. So that gives you your tax yield. So let's just add a little bit of a if you want to add, if you want to like find the tax yield now, so you just have to like substitute this value into this place, and that will give you the maximum tax yield. So if you do ty equals 15.5, 77.5 minus 0.1, whatever, just substitute the value of t into this place, you get the maximized tax yield or the maximum tax yield. And even before you do that, so how do you verify if tax was actually maximized, if the tax yield, the tax revenue now was maximized? You can just find the second derivative of this function. So this is the first derivative, 15.5 minus 0.2t. So the second derivative of this is going to be minus 0.2. But if you differentiate, that is going to be d squared ty over dt squared. That will give you minus 0.2, right? And from what you must have learnt in your freshman year, so when you find second derivative and the answer gives you a negative, right? So then that means whatever function you're looking at is maximized, right? So this is to tell us when you find d squared ty dt squared, you have minus 0.2. So since d squared ty dt squared is lesser than 0, that is negative. So ty is maximized where t equals 77.5. That should not really be a big deal for whoever is seeing this particular class. All right, so that's it. So the next thing that we are doing is assignments. If you have questions, leave them in the comment section for us. And the assignments, of course, for students enrolled with us at MOG School of Economics. So you now have to submit your assignments for us to evaluate them. So assignment now. Here's our assignment on the board. Assume a product has the demand function. So here you would have to change it to inverse demand functions when you start working, right? This and supply function is that. So here, calculate the tax yield when the government imposes a per unit tax of 3 naira. So the first one is saying that there is already a tax yield, like the tax. No, there's already a tax, a per unit tax. So you know it, which is 3 naira. So what you just have to do here is find the equilibrium quantity after tax has been imposed. Like you can follow the process that we did. Just that instead of you having TTT, you have 3 naira. So you get the equilibrium quantity, multiply it, and then find the tax yield. Then B, does 3 naira per unit tax maximize the tax yield? So in this case now, you'd you wouldn't be using 3 naira, you need to use T. Like this big question is asking you to do what we did in this video, right? You would have to use T. So like your T is now going to be something. The way our T was 7.5, like when we solved, so your T is going to be something, maybe 20, maybe something more than 3, maybe something lower than 3. So, but if the answer happens to be 3, then that means 3 naira is maximizing the tax yield. But if your answer is not 3, then that means 3 naira is not maximizing the tax yield. So you just pretend as if you don't know what the T is, as if you've not been given any T at all, and you work with that. Right, and then see, or more or less, I try to like prove if 3 naira maximizes the tax yield. So see, if the government were to raise the pennies tax a little, maybe to like 4 naira, will the tax yield rise or fall? So to solve that, then that also takes like from B. So if, for example, the answer you get here is 5 naira, so if the government were to raise the pennies tax to 4 naira instead of 3 naira, of course, there will be more tax revenue. But if the answer you got here was 3.5, and then government were to raise the per unit tax to 4 naira, right? The one that maximizes total revenue is 3.5. Then after a maximum point, you come down, like you cannot have two maximum point. Like after a maximum point, the next point is something that is lower than the maximum. So if you get a 4, whereas the tax that maximizes tax yield is 3.5, then that means 4 is going to lower tax yield. Like any number apart from that um tax yield maximizing per unit tax is going to lower tax yield. Um yeah, if I move from 3, upward, as I try to get to that point, um, that's maximizing point, you should be having higher tax yield, but not a maximized one. So what I'm trying to say is this: so your tax yield is like this. So if this is what maximizes your tax yield 3.5, no, let's say this were 4, for example, right? This is like the parent tax that maximizes, and then this was what 3 gave you. This is 3 here. So if you were to raise it to 3.5, for example, 3.5 would be here. So 3.5, the tax yield here will be more than 143, but it is not yet up to this point. Now, if you were to get 5, for example, then 5 is going to be after here. So that means I'm going to be having something lower than the maximum um tax yield. So that's what I'm trying to explain. So that's about that. Think about it, solve it. It's not that because practice, 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 and enjoy yourself. See you whenever I see you again. Have fun.